I really enjoy using my OBSBOT Meet 2 camera that's up in my teleprompter. The OBSBOT Center software is what makes that camera a fantastic piece of equipment. Hi there, I'm Don Bullock, and welcome to the Tech iHound, where I sniff out information on Apple computer and other related technologies and information that I use here in my studio and in my home. I recently bought an OBSBOT Meet 2 camera and I've been using that. I just did a review on that, so that should be on the channel. And this is an information about the OBSBOT Center software that goes with that Meet 2 camera. I also have a Tiny 2 Lite, and later on when I do a review of the Tiny 2 Lite, I'll share with you the features that are added to the software, to the OBSBOT Center software with that camera. But for now, we'll concentrate on the OBSBOT Meet 2 and the OBSBOT Center software that goes with it. And now for a quick demo of the app. I've moved the OBSBOT Center software over here to the left, and I've switched to OBS. I'm now recording in OBS. This is something that I really haven't done before. I think this is my fourth or fifth take. I can't remember. I'm trying it out to see if I can get it right, and so please bear with me. And over to my left over here on a monitor, I have some notes that I may refer to. I've taken the Meet 2 out of the teleprompter and I put it on top of my studio display where it normally would be if you were using it as a webcam. So that's what I'm doing. So this is the OBSBOT Center software. And I'm going to start with this menu. This is the menu for the OBSBOT Center software. It's not at the top of the screen where a lot of menus are. There's none up at the top of the screen. This is the menu for this software. And if I click on the first one is a camera view. And if I click on that, it's going to show the camera, the view that I have from the Meet 2, and it shows it on the computer. Now I need to switch scenes on the OBS software, so I'll do that, and you can now see this full screen. This is the Meet 2 where I do all the changing. I can change all the settings using this screen. I don't have to use a monitor up on top of my teleprompter like I had to do when I was using my Canon camera. So this is great. So that's the camera view from the software. Now if I go to the next section on the menu, the next section sort of looks like a timer. So if I click on that, what it does, it sleeps the camera. So you can't see me at all. Now I click back on that and it's going to take a while for it to come back. Now there's a little down arrow in that, and I could click on that, and that gives me a choice of sleep all devices or wake up all devices. So I could do all devices at the same time if I wanted to. Now the next section looks like a camcorder and a webcam. And I'm going to get rid of this first. If I click on that, it's going to give me a little screen here called Output. And it shows that I'm on my Meet 2. So this is the output from the Meet 2. I could record from here if I wanted. I could then click on the camera. Now if I smile, it'll take a picture of me. This would be really handy for thumbnails. Then next to that is a file folder. Then that shows me the files. Now you can't see that on my screen because I don't have that set up. So that was the files. Now next looks like a microphone. And the microphone shows me what I should be recording if I was using a recording of the Meet software. And these are all the ways that I could record. I could record through the Meet 2 camera, or I could record from all of these other choices. Right now I'm using Rode. But I'm going through OBS, remember, so I'm not recording here. So that's the audio choices. I'm going to get rid of that over here, switch to my other scene, and we're back. Now the next section is beauty. Now, I got news for you. I'm not going to mess with all the beauty settings. There are a ton of them here. It's amazing what you can do. I know people that use TikTok just love these, but I'm not going to get into all that. That could be a whole video in itself. So I'm going to turn that off. And the next choice up here, it sort of looks like a remote. There's a little rectangle here and like a wave coming out in front of it. And actually it is. And OBSBOT does have a remote that works with the cameras that they have. I don't have one, but I'll show a little bit more about that. So this is the OBSBOT Meet Remote, and it costs $39.99. It's important to note that this remote only works with the Meet cameras. It doesn't work with the other OBSBOT cameras. As shown here, this remote has a lot of functions, so you might want to go to their website to see if it's worth the price. So that's this main menu on the OBSBOT Center software. Now at the very top, there's a little menu up here, and I'd like to show a little bit about what goes on up there. The first is a gear, and let me change scenes again. That gear sends me to some software settings. I have the device management, and that's here. There's output management here. Global hotkeys. Now there are global hotkeys. I could use either my keyboard or my Stream Deck for that, but I don't have the global hotkeys all set up yet, but that's available. Then this is something called OSC. I have no idea what that is. I think it has to do with streaming. And then down here, there's some global settings. There's some things that I could change globally, and I could also update my software here if it needed to be updated. So that takes care of that gear. I'll get rid of that. And next to it is a funny little symbol. Right now it looks like a red tack. You know, tack like you'd use to put something on a bulletin board. Well, that tack actually is really strange, and let me show you how it works. I'm going to go back to this view and watch what happens when I slide this to the left. It goes behind the OBSBOT Center software. In other words, that tacks this to the top. It stays to the top. Now, if I click on that tack and turn it off, it turns into, looks like a star. And it says stick to on top. And if I move this over like that, you can see what happens. This is no longer stuck to the top. So I'm going to go back and click it so that it's stuck to the top. That tack sticks the OBS Center software to the top, and everything else will appear below it. Now below that is the gimbal. Now if the gimbal is slid all the way to the left, I can't use the gimbal if that slider is all the way to the left. So I'm going to move it over a little bit. Now I can use the gimbal to go left and right and up and down. Now let me get back to where it should be. You can see it's kind of fun playing around with the gimbal a little bit. Let me give you a little less headroom. And so that's the gimbal. Now below that, I have a choice of wide angle. I have a choice of medium angle too. And then I don't use the narrow too often, but that is a choice. Now, of course, if I use the narrow, I'd have to play with the gimbal a little bit to give me some headroom. But I usually keep it on medium. That's what I like to keep it on. And so that's what it stays on most of the time. Now for the gimbal, I could change the movement of the gimbal to fine. And if I change to fine, you can see that it goes much slower. So I usually leave it on course because most of the time I'm not really messing with it. I just want to make sure that I'm where I need to be on the camera. So that's the console page. The next page is where really what I'd call the meat and potatoes is for this software. And that is changing anything that has to do with this image that you're seeing, the one that's being recorded. Now, I keep it in HDR mode. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's what I do.
Then the next is autofocus. Now, I leave it on autofocus. I'm not going to take it off of autofocus, but that gives me a choice of either global autofocus, which is the whole scene, or autofocusing on my face. And since most of my stuff is headshot, I use the face. So that's the autofocus. Now, next down below, we have exposure. I keep it on auto exposure. I can take it off of that, but we're going to have some problems messing around with it, but I'll go ahead and do that. Now, the auto exposure is set either to global or face. And of course, I have it on face because I'm trying to concentrate on the exposure on my face, not the background. And there's a compensation, and I found because of my lighting that I have, I keep it on 0.3. Now that can change, and I messed with it here. That can change, but you keep it on 0.3, and that seems to be best for me. Now, if I turn off auto exposure, we're going to have some problems here. I can change shutter speed and I can change ISO. And I'm going to go back and see if I can get the auto exposure set here. It'll take a second. I think, there we go, it's getting back to it. So that's the exposure and the changes you can make to exposure. Below that, we have anti-flicker. Now, I have that off because I don't have any flicker problems, but I did have some problems with this light that's in the back doing some videos, and I'm not sure why. So if I did have that problem, I could try 50 hertz or 60 hertz to see if I could get rid of it. So that's anti-flicker. If I go down to the next section, we're looking at white balance. Now, white balance, I keep mine on a temperature of 3700 Kelvin, and that seems to be best for me. I do not use the auto white balance because I found the lights that I have in here, 37 Kelvin seems to work best. And then below that, we have the image changes. I can change the contrast of the image. I can change the saturation of the image, the sharpness of the image, and the hue of the image. So those are all some things that can be changed using image on the OBSBOT Meet 2.
Now, this is future me kind of jumping in after I've used this OBSBOT Center software for quite a while with my Meet 2. And that is that the sliders down here, they could add a couple to them that would make it a lot easier to use the software. The first I think they need is one for tint. I've noticed that there are times, especially when I'm trying to match up more than one camera, where I could adjust the tint just a little bit. Now, I know maybe possibly in white balance or someplace else that could be done, but just adding a tint control slider down there would really be helpful. And the other slider that I've noticed that would be helpful would be one for brightness. So if OBSBOT could add a tint control slider and one for brightness, that would be really great and would add tremendously to this software. Otherwise, it's a really great software. I really like how it helps me to adjust my cameras on my computer rather than having to get up and go around and look at the back of the camera all the time like I used to have to do.
Then over here we have the more. And more is other changes that I can make. I'm not going to get into all the changes that are here. I will zoom in on
gesture control.
Now, I tend to use my hands a lot, and usually my OBSBOT Meet 2 is in my teleprompter. So doing a lot of hand gestures and accidentally changing the auto framing or the zoom of the camera is not a good idea in the teleprompter. It might end up showing the sides of the teleprompter, which is not something that I want to do. So I usually keep that all turned off, but that's available. So the next section is audio, and I need to open that up. I didn't have it open for some reason. I have the microphone status during sleep. And my microphone during sleep, when I sleep the camera, the microphone is muted, it's off. In fact, I don't turn the microphone on for the camera at all. I don't use the Meet 2 microphones. In fact, usually it's in the teleprompter and you wouldn't be able to hear it very well anyway. Right now, I'm actually using a microphone that's up on my hat, and that's going through the Rodecaster. If I am using the Meet 2 microphone, they do have a noise reduction that you can use, and there's an auto gain. Now, I don't know why they have the auto gain turned on, but it is. I can disable the microphone, which I have done. I've disabled the microphone. And there's a radio distance. And if I'm using it, if I was using the microphone, I would have it on close because it's close to me. So that's the audio. There are 2 microphones on the Meet 2 camera, but I don't use those. And I don't have it set up so I can right this minute. Now below that is something that's used by a lot of people that blog, I guess, and that's mirror the camera. Now you notice I froze there for a second, and now I'm mirroring the camera. Now I don't use that because I don't blog. I do know someone who has it set on his iPhone that he uses for recording scenes like this, and so when he has something on his t-shirt, it always reads backwards. So obviously I need to take that off. You notice I'm freezing there, and now I'm back to normal. So that is available on the Meet 2. So down below the mirror image is an indicator for the status light that's on the Meet 2 camera. There's a little light on the camera that says it's ready for recording. At least I have it set that way. That is a little LED, and it does change colors depending on the mode of the camera at the time. Now, I have it on all the time because I want to know when the Meet 2 is ready to record, and I don't want to miss a recording just because I didn't have the light on. Now, I can turn that light off, and if it does that, it gives me a choice over here, and I just say done, and I'm going to turn it back on. Now, there's also a brightness, and I can change that brightness down to 2, down to 1, or I can move it all the way up to 3. I keep it on 3 because it's when it's in the teleprompter, I can see it through the glass of the teleprompter. So that's the indicator light that's on the camera and tells me that it's ready to record. So that's the OBSBOT Center software. There are other things that I didn't show you, of course, but you can see that it is very complex and has a lot of choices. If you ever get one of the OBSBOT cameras, you can explore away and have a lot of fun with it. It really is a fun piece of software to use, and it's really easy to use. Over here is the link to the video on the Meet 2 camera and another one you might be interested in. Please like this video, subscribe, and ring that little bell so that you don't miss any of my videos that are coming out in the future. I greatly appreciate all of you, and thank you all very much for watching.